¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estáis? Vamos a...
How are you now? We have to start now before Jorge tells us off. I was doing some scientific research early this morning, and you'll tell me about this because you're a researcher. And this is one of the best events ever. And I'll tell you why. We have just spoken with Liliana, a Colombian from Genf. We've had Maria, a girl from Cordoba, living in London, and now have a Belgian person living in Sevilla. Empodera life is great. Having said that, we are with Yves Punie. He's a researcher for the European Commission. One of the important things about this is that, well, everything that comes from the administration, especially local or even national or international, trickles down to the citizens. And what Yves and his team is doing has added value because it creates solutions for society, and it can be applied and landed in actual projects. And you realize that everything we are going to hear today applies directly to citizens and education. This is my title. Yves is a researcher, works for the European Commission and does things that are worth it. But can you tell us who Yves Punie is? Wow, it's I'm the blue shirt guy because I'm wearing the same one I'm wearing on that picture. So that's me. That's me. Second thing, well, the standard is not very high. It is very high. We had 4 women before us, and now it's our turn, and we try to keep it up. I had a problem with Oscar yesterday because we were chatting, and he asked me, which language would you like to speak? And I said, I work in English, and I feel more comfortable in English. And he told me, well, there is a lot of people in the audience. We should speak in Spanish. And I said, all right, I'll try. But if I say something stupid, it's your fault. I work at the Joint Research Centre. It's a research centre for the European Commission. We work together with Fabrizio, who was here yesterday. They work rather on the political side, and we work, in my department, we work on research supporting European policies with evidence analysis and empirical data. We work on climate change, transport, agriculture, tax policy, and also digital economy, human capital, and employment. That's my field of work. In Seville, there is a center where 400 people from all over Europe are employed. We do research to apply on employment policies for the European challenges. And what are those challenges, and which data do you have on Europe at your center? Well, there's many. In my field of work,
es la competencia digital.
Sí.
¿Sí? Y tenemos algo.
We work with digital competence. We have some data and some important challenges in Europe as well as in the rest of the world. But in Europe, like I said, half of the European population does not have enough digital competence. That's a huge challenge. 50%. Actually, it's 46% of the people do not have sufficient digital competence at a European level. Like Liliana said before, well, this is the average. There is a lot of imbalance in the northern countries, Netherlands. The digital competence is much higher than in Southern Europe or Eastern Europe or in Romania, where the digital competence is for 30% of the people. Like I said before, inequality is huge. If we take 56% of the people with digital competence and look into their education and social and economic profile, The ones with a higher education reach 70–80%. Lower education, worse employment, move around 20–30% of the people with digital competence. That's an important challenge, and you said before that there are countries in Europe with more digital competence, or less. So where would Spain be? Spain is doing right. Spain is going fine in infrastructure, digital competence. Spain is slightly above the European average. And regarding competence, it's a little below competence. We work a lot with Spain. Let's go to the nitty-gritty. What are competences? We're going to speak about competence. What's competence? We speak about competence. We don't only speak about skills. Why? Well, it's very important because competence is the combination between knowledge, skills, and attitude or abilities. And that's a cluster, and it needs to come together. We might be able to send emails who work with Excel sheets, and that's a skill, but you also need to have the knowledge on what you're doing and also the attitude on why you are using that and what you are going to do with that competence. That's very important. So let's get busy. We're going to speak about digital competence for citizens. What's this? What digital competences do we need? Like we had yesterday from Fabrizio from the European Commission, I can't work without PowerPoints. That's our prerequisite. He has only brought 4 slides. We've brought it down to 4 slides. We've been working on this since 2010, and the key idea was, all right, if people need digital competence, what's that? How many are those? We did some research, and we came up with this digital competence framework with 5 areas and 21 competences, setting and describing the type of competences we need. There are 5 areas: information and data literacy. This is about fake news, misinformation, and all that. Knowing how to communicate. And knowing about rules and values as you use the technology. How to use in a multicultural environment. There's also citizenship among the competences. Second area, communication. Third area is digital content creation. There's digital citizenship and programming. This aims at education. And then we'll hear a colleague speak about programming later. Fourth area is privacy and security. Knowing how to protect your data, your privacy, and also your well-being, because this is where cyberbullying comes in. And also climate change, environmental impact, and finally problem solving. All this is great. That's brilliant. That's a great piece of research, and I'm already applying this. We know which competences we need. So in order for us to have an actual result in society, how can we use this? This concept framework that needs to be implemented. In some of the European countries, they are only taking the framework to modify their school curriculums to know which skills they need to train on. It's also being used in training for employment. We know that many people unemployed have very low digital skills. These are just some of the areas where this type of competence can be applied. Well, what's new about this? In March of this year, we came with the DigComp 2.2 version with over 200 examples on how to apply these 21 competences. We came up with new examples to update this type of competences. We speak much about AI, artificial intelligence, fake news. In all these things, we give examples on how to implement these competences. Are those examples from all over Europe, also Spain? Yes. From what I see, if you've updated this, will we need to keep ourselves updated constantly in terms of digital competence? We tend to think that that's something we acquire at some point. Well, that's not it. It's rather the other way around. Society changes so fast that we should try and boost this mindset that we need to keep ourselves updated all life long. It's a lifelong learning. This is not like the driver license that you get once and it's valid for 30 years. It's quite the opposite. When we discussed about competences before, we spoke about this certificate. I have a friend in Brussels, and if he gets his digital competences there and I get mine here, what happens? Certificates are key. Apart from training, then there's certificates to prove that you actually have those competences. There are many certification initiatives, but we've also seen that there is a need to have something at a European level recognized throughout Europe. We're going to launch a feasibility study on a European Digital Skills Certificate. It's just like for languages. If you have a B2 level on problem solving or a C1 in something different, that's acknowledged throughout Europe, and everyone knows what you're talking about. It's not easy to get there because we need some quality criteria acknowledged by all the stakeholders. But I think that that's a very important thing for the future. We've seen the digital competences for citizens, but can we move to the next slides, please? How about teachers? Teachers are also citizens. How about education? What type of skills or competences will they need? There's teachers on the one hand and institutions on the other. How about teachers now? It's about having a systematic approach on digital transformation. We are towards the individuals, but also to the teachers. Teachers also need digital skills to use the technologies and teach their students and promote digital competences for the children. We have the DigComPedu framework for teachers. And for 1 year, we've had a self-reflection tool called Selfie for Teachers. It's in every EU language. It's a self-diagnosis based on the concept framework. And with this, you have an idea on the competences you have, those you don't have, and those you need to improve. This self-diagnosis provides you with a report on the room for improvement, and it gives you tips on how to improve. And then you have the training. That's Selfie for Teachers. And then we have the same thing for education centers. That's called Selfie only. Selfie. It's a self-reflection tool for education centers done by every stakeholders. Teachers, students, and school headmasters. There's a self-assessment first, a report then, And according to that report, there is a digital action plan that's launched to improve the use of technologies. And it's for teaching innovation. The technology is just a tool for teaching innovation. It's a change in the paradigm for teaching. I was going to ask about technology innovation. Are these tools useful in schools? Yes, that's what we want to promote. I'm also a teacher. Do you think teachers might find it difficult to innovate with these new tools? We'll have to see this, how it applies. We are doing some case studies to see how teachers are using this in their practice. Much of what we hear is that it is very useful because it helps them reflect upon what they do. Do we have a good level? We don't want to be a benchmarking for the European countries, but in Andalusia, for instance, it is included in the Seneca platform with all the teachers from Andalusia. They on this platform they do the digital competence test. In Andalusia, there is 30% with an A2 level, 30% B1 level, very few on the higher level, and about 10% on the lowest level, A1. It's not bad, but it needs to be better. We've seen digital competences as citizens, but digital competence or competences that are not digital are also important. You've also worked on them. And we heard about climate change before. What are the competences set for DigComp, the European Sustainability Competence Framework? DigComp is something we have studied. That's the Green Competence Framework, DigComp. Same idea. We want to identify and define the competences needed by citizens today and also in the future to be more sustainable. And this is the model not with ants now, but with bees. And visual representation. Here we speak about 4 areas with 3 competences each. Environmental values, respecting nature, thinking forward. We know that what we do now impacts the future. This is about critical thinking. The world is an ecosystem. A small thing here will impact something elsewhere, and we need to think that way, to think more systematically. And also critical thinking. We know that it's very difficult for citizens if we follow climate change debate. Some of the scientists say yeah, some say no, just a little, and others say no. And you wonder what you are meant to do. We need to live with the uncertainty and find our way through the uncertainty. So DigComp is what you just explained, and LiveCom, next slide, is DigComp is in every European language. And how does it compare to LiveCom? There is key competences for lifelong learning. There are 8. DigComp, entrepreneurship, languages, STEM, and personal, social, and learning to learn competence. And here we've set some competences to, again, show the type of competences required for certain fields. learning to learn is especially important. All the information is online. We can find anything, so we have to teach to learn to learn. So having your competences as a citizen, as a teacher, you also have your competences to help the planet, but maybe not everything depends on me. We spoke about the artificial intelligence bias, the gender bias, being radicalized about certain things and being separated from others. All this is related to algorithms. Is the EU or the Commission working on this to regulate all this? To answer that question, on the previous debate, I'm here speaking about competences that we all need to acquire. But that's not only for citizens. Like we had yesterday, there is a self-regulation project, but we know that that's not enough. We need to regulate and fight the EA biases. That's essential. And now the EU is going to pass in December the Digital Services Act, and from next year we're going to be able to regulate the platforms that will operate in Europe. We're speaking about the 5-7 big platforms, Facebook, Google, etc. The concept here is algorithmic transparency. Algorithms need to go against discrimination and respect human rights. On the one hand, platforms of the future will have to prove that they are doing an effort to prevent discrimination, but we know that that's limited. There are many other examples on the fact that they can't control everything. We do our research and then we tell the platforms that they need to address a number of problems to prevent for them to operate in the European market. That's going to be a huge challenge, but I think it's going to be very important. So regulation next year, big challenge for the big ones. Do you think they will get a little bit angry? Just like Liliana said yesterday, there is their corporate responsibility. They say that they're doing things, they're moving forward, but I think that they will. That's what you get. We have a public interest. We do not have trade interests. And everyone knows that we depend on very powerful platforms, and we need to free ourselves from them on public interest. We now have time for questions, if you have any.
Sí, muchas gracias. Gracias por la presentación.
Thank you very much for this presentation. When talking about digital competences, oftentimes I see that there is a mix-up between competencies for the worker or competencies for work, especially for knowledge workers. And sometimes those are mixed up with competencies that have to do with good citizenship. Nevertheless, all of them seem to be kind of mixed up in some kind of united figure or one single dimension. So I would like for you to elaborate on this topic. Well, yeah, it's true. Yeah, it is. Yeah, an appropriate comment. We don't have the perfect reference framework that can be used for all fields. So this DigComp framework encompasses many different things because it's a reference framework, and then you need to translate that into practice. And you can translate that into practice focusing on certain competencies for the realm of work, or some others for the field of education, or to focus some competencies on the field of citizenship. And that's why we do that in practice. We need to implement this into practice, but set it in the context because it's still a generic framework. Something that I failed to mention is that those frameworks are reference European frameworks, which are voluntary. Countries, regions, schools, etc., can decide to pick it or not, because the European Commission does not have competence in order to regulate in the realm of education. These are references, reference frameworks. If we have a European forum, it helps if we have the representatives of the ministries of education of all the countries, and we gather all of them together in a room for 2 days and discuss about these kinds of things. So the framework helps in order to achieve a common language so that one country can learn from the other. And that's one of the things which are essential in the European Commission. Perfect. One more question, perhaps one. Yeah. I have one question, which is going to be the last one. It's very short. We have 3 minutes. Come on, we have time for 1 minute. According to what you said, I'm abiding by the schedule. You told me there's 3 minutes, and they are hours. Okay. I thought that you had 3 questions, not 3 minutes. Hello. Let's see if I can gather my thoughts. In this framework that you have set up for digital competences for citizenship, have you taken into consideration, I understand it's the case, but I would like for you to talk about this. Have you taken into consideration people with disabilities, functional diversity? How is this framework going to encompass these kinds of people? Well, in the 2.2 version, we do have many more examples of use cases of competencies for people with disabilities. And the 2.2 version that you can consult online is going to abide by the rules of accessibility for people that have some kind of disabilities, or they're blind, etc. In the last version, this has been taken into consideration. My question is super short, and you can climb up the stairs, which is good for everyone's health. So please accept that other question. They say it in Instagram that it's good for your health if you climb up the stairs. Well, good morning. I have serious doubts regarding the process of regularization or regulating large platforms, because they come from the North American continent, and there are some other emerging Asian platforms. The EU does not have platforms, but it's going to regulate the Asian and US platforms. But we can see the geopolitical decline in the European continent. Do we have time to regulate this? Are we going to have this? Are we going to see this or not? I think that there is a lack of foresight and connection with technological entrepreneurship, probably. Yes, I fully agree. Yes, but it's what we have. In Andalusia, they say it's what it is, es lo que hay, it's what it is. You're talking to someone from Seville. Yeah, but even so, we need to do something about it. We are in that situation, but I understand that right now with the war we are witnessing and everything, the EU, there was in the Union speech from Ursula, the president, has talked about the technological dependence of Europe regarding the other countries. This is something that we knew, but it has been made evident. All the chips, everything, 80% of all those chips are made by Taiwan. If Taiwan closes the tap tomorrow, we are left without computers. So these are huge challenges that are on the table, but they're not easy to tackle. But at least they are parts of the political agenda, and little by little we need to start combating them. Perfect. We have seen the case of Maria, the fish and chips girl. Now, I would like to know which are the necessary competences for a Belgian to live in Seville. Do you need to become a fan from the Betis football team? Do you need to have a house in Seville? How about those competences? Really good question. Well, it's lo que hay. It's what it is. What can I say? Well, yes, 21 years. I came here for a postdoc. We were talking about that. For just 2 years, I was working at the University of Brussels, and I came here for the postdoc with my wife, with our 2-year-old. We wanted to come here for 2 years, enjoy the sun, and go back to the real life in Brussels, but we ended up staying for 21 years, so we kind of liked it, not just work, but also life quality as a whole here. So yes, I am a fan and a member of the Betis Football Club fan club, obviously, and I have box tickets there. A big round of applause. Okay.
A ver si me da la gargantica. Qué guay.
No, no me ha dado tiempo.
Era tarde, ¿no?
Are you going to include my Betis Football Club membership? No, I didn't have time for that. Okay. Hello. Bee flight, metaphor for the future. That compass signals the east and then the south, where we can see inhabitants that are disconnected. 46 want to become the north and reach 100. Yves